Hey everybody, and welcome back to another Mainstream Monday here on Horror Film Lovers. I'm your host, Jonathan Moody, and I'm here with
John Ward.
John Ward, my co-host. I wanted to say Trusty Ward. Is not a thing.
So I,
Like,
I'm your Robin.
yes.
You're Batman.
Oh no, that's really funny that because they say Ward and whatever, but that dude's name was Burt Ward.
Yes, it was,
Yeah. So,
or still is. He's not dead yet.
oh,
So
that's
yes, it was.
true. That's true. And we're going to be talking here about the first Insidious. The
Insidious
first
one.
Insidious Chapter 1, which they don't say because even though you could tell they had a feeling they'd be making a sequel to it, kind of left it open-ended where,
They left it very open ended, and I have a huge feeling that they were planning on doing a sequel all along. I mean, they had to be. There's absolutely no way they didn't
right,
think they were with that ending.
right. I mean, and we'll get into this a little bit more. Real quick though, you did want to talk about something else, and so let's do that before we dive right into all of Insidious, because we'll probably forget about the other stuff
Well,
if
let
we.
well we'll do the money stuff then first.
Well, no, that's last, isn't it?
I don't know. It's whenever we plan on doing it.
Yeah, we do the
A
money
lot
stuff
of
last.
a lot of the times we just forget about it,
I
and then
thought
I
you.
go, "Oh crap, we didn't do the money stuff."
No, let's talk. I want you
I
wanted to talk about Bye Bye Man, which and stuff, right? Or do you?
Well, yeah,
Or
I mean, yeah, we could talk about that, sure,
yeah.
up front.
So
But yeah, so I purchased the Bye Bye Man, which many people will probably go, "Oh my God, why did you purchase that?" Well, I purchased it really for one reason, and that's the first like 8 minutes of the movie, and which has Lee Wanell in it, and it's the best part of this entire film.
I can tell it's
So
kind of like Ghost Ship, where the first beginning of the opening of the movie is amazing, and then the rest sucks.
yeah, it's almost like the writer of this is it the writer director? No, it's a different. So the yeah, writer and director are different. It's almost like he came. Want to make sure I get this right. Yeah, he came up with this really cool idea for this 8 minute beginning, and then went, and then people said, "Hey, we love it. Now let's make
Right,
a feature out of it." And he's like, "Oh fuck! Now what do I do?"
right.
And then he brought in like a group of teenagers or 20 somethings, whatever they are, into this house because they're going to school together, and then it's bad after that.
Right.
So it's like they just didn't know. It's kind of like the original When a Stranger Calls,
Mm-hmm.
how the director made a short film and then Hollywood said, "Hey, make a feature out of it," and the director was like, "Oh shit! Now what do I do? I kind of shot my wad in 10 minutes," and then he made a really boring movie after that.
The original When a Stranger Calls.
Yeah,
The original When a Stranger Calls that stars what's Carol Kane or whatever.
yeah,
Which was so weird to have her in that movie. I'm just so
yeah.
used to her from like
It's a strange.
comedies and stuff. So um,
Well,
like
and it's strange because I think she plays like a teenager at first,
hmm
and then the guy gets caught who's in the house and he murdered the kids, and then it cuts to something like 10 years later and she's an adult, and we're mostly following around the killer after he gets out of prison, and it's weird because it doesn't follow that first 10 minutes at all.
well, the first 10 minutes was the urban legend, of
Yeah, the
the
call is
big
coming from
the
inside the
calls,
house.
yeah, upstairs, which I've always loved that urban legend. I think that's one of my favorites. I've always wanted to do something with that at some point. In fact, I was originally, but then shit happened and then we just never made it, or whatever. But I would love to do that someday, just kind
Well,
of
and
work on
the
that. But it
original
would be
Black
a short,
Christmas
you
did
know.
it.
Yeah, Black Christmas did it.
Yeah, and even the deputy that's at the police station, he's not supposed to tell the sorority girl, who's on the phone, but he goes, "Get out of the house. The calls are coming from inside the house."
hmm
So it's been done over the years, and I have a feeling with the Bye Bye Man, it was the same thing. Is we're gonna start this scene off with like the wife coming home, and then she sees I think his name is Jerry, who's Lee Winnell, and he's written all over the walls like what does this sound here? Don't think it, don't say it, and it's over and over and over again. And
Hmm.
then he goes and gets the gun, the rifle, and shoots his wife. And he's like, sorry. And then he, you get the
Wait,
two
why did he shoot
girls.
his wife though? Does she know the name?
Uh
I don't think
no, because
she
she
knew
was
the name.
she was really confused, but she's seeing everything that's being done. So maybe she's see, I always took it as, and this is where I think it lost focus, is that it was like a virus. And you have to stop the virus. And
Right.
the bye bye man is that virus. And so now she's been corrupt. So he has to kill her. So then
Hmm.
he sees the two girls out on the street, and it's just great as that camera just follows him as the girls are running back to the house, back to their house, and he like kicks the door down and ends up shooting them and the mom. And of course, you see "Happy Birthday" up there, so it's somebody's birthday that day. And he goes to shoot himself, and there's no more bullets in the in the rifle, and then he drinks like the Drano,
It
and
says
and
poison on it. Literally says poison on it.
yeah, it's
So,
like poison or Drano or something like that. And as he's about to die, he sees, I guess, the bye bye man looking down at one of the bodies, and he's like, I stopped you, I stopped you. And I have a feeling that the writer thought this is awesome, which it is. It's a good beginning, and it's really well done, and
the
it's
only
great to see.
I
You
had a
know,
problem with one of the things was he shot the one girl, the one lady in the house or whatever, because for some reason she's running away and he takes a little bit of time to get to the door. She shoots the hole through the door and it shoots her in the back. But I'm like, why didn't she like get the fuck out of the way of the door? Like
well,
she had plenty of time. She had
because
plenty of
she
time. And then,
Yeah, but you're not thinking about that. He goes up to the door, and then he's talking to her, saying, I left that little part out. I forgot that. Yeah, he goes up and says, "Did you tell anybody?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, I told my husband. He thought it was funny." And then that's when
yeah, no,
type of
no, but
thing.
he goes back to the car and
Oh
she
yeah, takes it
closes the
out.
door
Yeah,
when she sees the thing.
the
She closes
rifle.
the door. And I thought she would have locked it. That would be a smart thing, right? Like lock the door, run up the like stairs or wherever, right? And he shoots the shoots a big ass hole because it's a shotgun, big ass hole in the door, and then kicks open the door or whatever, gets open the door, sees that she's not dead, shoots her, kills her, which I mean, I whatever. But then he looks over
I
and
think
sees the
you're.
guy. He sees the guy with her, and he's on the ground, like crawling. And I'm like, how did he get shot? I guess her husband or boyfriend, whoever that was, that she told, and he comes up and he asks, "Did you tell anybody?" And he says, "I only told so and so or whatever, this other girl." And I was like, why is he crawling? Like, what is like
Probably because
it,
he got shot with her. I think you're nitpicking it. I think that you're
I'm not
kind of
nitpicking. This
like
is shit that needs to be
the
nitpicked.
toothbrush thing. No, it doesn't. Kind of like the toothbrushing thing on the Conjuring short that we watched. It's like it's something that's so small. She closes the door. He goes and gets the gun. He shoots through it. She probably thinks that she's far enough away from the door. Maybe the husband's there, and he shoots it. And that's why she's not dead, is because he got part of it. She got part of it. So she's on the ground. He's in the living room. And then he kicks open the door and then shoots her because she's not dead. And then he shoots the guy.
Mm.
I don't know. I think it's nitpicking a little bit. I think
Yeah,
that
well,
it's
those little things, man, as a writer, you should,
well,
or a director should figure that out and shit because
I'm I had no problem with it at all. The beginning of the film is already 8 minutes long, and you need to get to the main story. You need to get to the credits.
that's true.
So you can't follow this woman, around the entire house and then follow the husband around the entire. I mean, it'd be 20 minutes long. So you got to compress it, and then he sees the girls outside and follows them. So
I
I I
mean,
I got no problem with that
I don't
beginning
know.
at all.
What I would have done differently to make it all work would be for him to say, I'm gonna, because she run over and grab the gun, and as before she can get a chance to run out, shoot her in the back before she can get into the house, come into the house, kill that guy, go back
But
out.
she's already in the house.
That's when she wasn't in, like, she comes out for a second to see where he's going because he was going to the car. So she was
But
looking.
I'm gonna woulda, coulda, shoulda. I mean, you can
I'm
really
just
only
saying
go
that's what
off
I would
of.
have done differently to make it
Well, okay,
actually
but you
work.
don't know
But
that you would have done that because, as we know from like the film Valentine, that and the director talks about all this stuff about how he didn't have the money, how he didn't have the time, how he didn't have all this stuff, which is why a lot of stuff is done in a two shot with somebody in the
mhm.
background and somebody in the foreground. That it's you don't have the time, so we don't exactly know what the director
Had to
had.
go through. Yeah, I understand.
I mean, that was probably a whole day right there.
Probably.
So,
And plus you have to get one Lee Winnell. Lee probably could only do like a certain amount of hours, and stuff because he's a SAG actor, you know what I mean? Like it was
well, I
no,
mean, but this is a SAG film, so
that's what
he
I'm saying. Yeah, no, I'm not saying it
I
wasn't a
mean,
SAG film. I'm saying
so he'd
he
be there for
could
at least 8 hours.
yeah, he could only be there for a certain amount of hours for the day. And I don't think they did more than one day for his stuff, because if he can pay only for a day, most filmmakers do, get them.
Well, and I'm guessing that he did it because he liked it. I mean, it's you
It's a
know,
great opening.
yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I think you're nitpicking a little bit. So
That's all I noticed, and that was kind of all that bothered me the whole time. I was like,
so the entire
the
thing.
no, I mean the rest of it, I liked him drinking the thing. I liked him not having enough, shots in the to kill himself. I liked all the rest of the stuff with it. It's just um another thing. Now, this isn't a nitpick because I think that I get why this happened, but the other lady and her daughter or whatever run into the house, the mother and daughter run into the house, and she doesn't lock the door. And at first I was like, okay, you're not gonna lock the door once you know somebody's coming toward your
That's
house.
yeah,
But
that's a little weird. Yeah.
yeah, but then she attacked the guy once he got in and stuff, and I had a feeling that's might be what she was thinking, supposedly, or at least that's what they could say she was thinking. So that didn't bother me because it made sense. Now, if they had done it where the girl got shot because he wasn't planning, and then the guy, the husband, attacked him, you know, and stuff. They can't do it twice, I guess. They can only do that once. But what I'm saying is that would make sense. That would be
See,
okay.
I think if you can kind of make a conclusion on that, then I can make a conclusion on the woman, and her husband being together behind the door, and it was more
Yeah,
buckshot, that type of thing that got both of them, and he went this way and
maybe a
she went down
ricochet or
that way,
something kind of thing.
and
I don't know.
and well, I don't think you get much ricochet with
And I,
like a
I
shotgun.
don't, I don't get how could one can shoot somebody in the back and then still shoot somebody, in the leg or whatever it was and how he got all the way over there from like it just, I know it's nitpicking, but it just bothered me because I was like, why is the guy crawl? Like if he were running around, I'd be okay, but he was literally on the ground. He didn't look like he had any blood on him. And I was just like, what the fuck what is he doing? Like, I don't know. Is he preparing for a earthquake? I don't know. Just
He
and
wasn't
like,
under a table
what? But he was crawling
or
like he was trying
standing
to
in a door
get
frame.
under something, or whatever. But he didn't know, like he had no, from what I remember, he had no bullet hole in him or anything. He was just crawling, and I was just like, what the fuck are you doing?
Well, you might have been crawling on the ground thinking, that maybe the
The guy
killer
wouldn't
wouldn't
see him.
see him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe, but he was
You
out in the
know,
open. I mean, where the guy saw
that's
him
what you're
like
supposed to
straight
do
there.
during like a school shooting. You're supposed to get on the ground.
You're supposed to get on the ground so the guy doesn't see you in the window. However, when the
Yeah.
guy walks in, that's the first thing he's gonna see is you crawling on the
I
ground. So I don't know. It didn't. Whatever. I'm okay. Like the rest of it, like the whole rest of it, I didn't bother me. And you even saying like him killing his wife was probably because she knew too much, or whatever. And she might be infected
Well, yeah,
too,
you
sort of.
have to. I think that they tell you later on in the movie. I'm going to rewatch it, but it's I think they say like you have to eliminate all knowledge. Like
Right.
anybody that knows of this has to be killed.
Right.
And which to me is a much more interesting idea of the Bye Bye Man being a virus instead of some Slender Man, Freddy Krueger type
Candyman, I was
guy or
thinking more
can
like
yeah.
don't say his name, or whatever. Which actually is kind of a cool idea of a guy that if you're, if you say his name, he comes to haunt you. That's, you know what I mean? Like it's kind of scary in itself in a way, and it should be done better, I
Yeah,
guess.
you know, the thing that man, they I mean they did do an unrated version of this, so it's both the theater version and the unrated. But it's like there's unless they didn't list it, man, there ain't shit. Like they had no
No
faith in
special
this and
features.
nothing. I mean, maybe they just didn't list it. I don't
Or
know, but
maybe they
it's
just really, because it didn't do very well from what I understood, and it got panned pretty bad. Maybe they're just
oh
like,
yeah, oh yeah,
we're not gonna we're just not gonna do anything because nobody cares. Only
yeah.
John Ward cares.
That's what I'm thinking with something like the Slender Man is they have behind the scenes on the Blu-ray, but that's because they were shot before the movie came out.
Right.
So they got the director and the actors and everybody to talk about the movie and how great it is. But of course, when the movie came out, there's no audio commentary, there's no nothing because
Yeah.
they're probably like, shit, I ain't gonna talk about this thing. So,
Oh man, just be careful when you
but
name your something something man. Except it's
yeah,
Candyman. You're kind of screwed.
I mean, he does kind of look like Candyman there.
Well, like what I'm saying is like I think it's modeled after Candyman. You don't say his name. I mean, you don't have to say his name 5 times in the mirror, but like it's similar in a way. So I totally get that. Yeah.
I mean, so if I said so according to this, because it says don't think it. So if I go, okay, wait,
You think the
there,
name.
I just thought the Bye Bye Man. Would that I guess that would bring the Bye Bye Man?
Now, is that his actual name, or is there an actual name that you're not supposed to say? Like, is that just what you call him when you're not supposed to say his name? I haven't seen the movie, and I literally, I don't really, I'm like, I'm not in them.
Um, it says when three college friends stumble upon the horrific origins of the Bye Bye Man, they discover that there is only one way to avoid his curse. Don't think it. Don't say it. But once the Bye Bye Man gets inside your head, he takes control, making you see and do unspeakable acts committed by man. Oh, that's racist. It should say by humans or people.
Isn't that racist, or is that like
Well,
sexist?
committed by sexist. Okay, sexist. I'll go with
Yeah,
sexist.
sexist, because it's
Yeah.
not racist. Racist would mean white man. You
Well,
know.
it's racist against men because it's only saying that men will do it, but it is sexist because it doesn't include women.
Yeah.
So how dare they? They should be canceled.
Yeah.
I think it was because nobody
Or
watches
actually, they should be even more canceled because they should say they or
they
them.
them.
They them, because if you're in this world right now we live in, if you say man or woman, you're in trouble. you know um I knew a
But
girl who literally would not let me, who told me that I in LA I wasn't allowed to say call somebody a what was it? It was woman, I think. Woman. And I was like, what do you want? What do I call women? I'm just like I'm so confused. But apparently that makes them feel inferior for men, white men, to call a woman a woman. I don't know.
that doesn't make any sense to me. I understand women get mad at being called girl,
Yeah,
or if they're a woman, or cutie, or honey,
right,
or baby, or
right.
something
But
like
no,
that.
she said woman.
But
I'm
yeah,
not allowed
that
to
doesn't
call
make
them
sense to me
woman to
because
them
woman is the
women.
same as man. I mean, it's the
And
same thing.
there was because I told somebody about this, but there was a I said uh like one of the characters was a no female. That was it. That was it. Not woman. Female. Female makes them feel I don't know,
But
certain
then that would
people.
be male. It'd be
Right.
the same thing as male.
That's what they want. They don't want to be an actress. They want to be an actor.
Well, all of that stuff is stupid as it is, because it goes back to calling anybody anything. And throughout history, it always changes. And it's like, make
Hmm.
up your fucking mind on what you want to be called. Men haven't said don't call me men.
Well,
Don't call me men or a man or whatever it is. But everybody else seems to have, like, every 20 years it seems to change.
right,
And I understand if you don't want to, if a woman gets offended if you say that you're cute, because then they go, oh, what am I, a puppy?
right. No,
Okay, fine. Then I won't call you cute. Then I
right.
guess
And that's fine. I mean,
you're
that's
just a
understandable.
blank slate to me.
And
I
I
I
don't like,
guess
look,
so.
if somebody doesn't feel comfortable with me calling them a female, I won't, tell me that. Like, let me know. But don't yell at me if I say that word that I've said all my life, like, and everything, because I didn't know that would offend you, you know? But if you tell me, people have to tell me sort of, what they're offended by, sort of, and then I'm one of those people that actually does adhere to whatever people are like offended by, because I understand, like, that's your
I
choice.
I'm not necessarily.
And I understand that too.
Because the only time when I ever changed my wording on something is when I was going to Los Angeles City College, and long, but we're talking 20 years ago or whatever, and there was an Asian woman, sorry, that I liked in class, and I said, and I don't know how the conversation came up, but I said that she was Japanese,
Ooh,
and she wasn't. She was like Chinese.
right.
And and she goes, "Why do you think I'm Japanese?" I'm like, And she's like, "Do you think everyone is Japanese?" And I said, And I think,
Yeah,
and she goes, "You just say Asian."
that makes
And
sense.
that covers everything. And
If you're
I'm like,
not
"Oh,
sure
okay, that makes sense."
what they heritage they are, you know, you say like for people in Asia, you say Asian. If I'm not sure if somebody is Irish or English or Scottish, which I mean you can tell by the accents if you know the accents well enough. You just say European, you know. They can't get mad at you for that, They are European, you know.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it makes sense to do that,
So
but
if they remade this today, would it be the Bye Bye Woman?
it might very well these days, or that might be the sequel, The Bye Bye Woman. I don't know.
Maybe.
You know what? I support that actually, just because why not? Because
you,
it,
you know I got to tell you, so when that Children of the Corn trailer came out, the brand new one that comes out in like 3 days, 3 or 4
mm,
days, they gender swapped Isaac and Malachi. And at first that bothered me. I'm like, why would you what's the point? It's based on a Stephen King story. They're both male. Why
mm,
would you do that? And then I thought, wait a minute, who cares?
yeah,
They've had 12 Children of the Corn movies, and
it's
I don't think one of them has like a female lead. So
yeah.
if you want to make number 13, the evil Wednesday looking girl is kind of Isaac, and then the really tall kind of lumberjack looking girl is Malachi. I'm guessing their names are different,
I hope
but
so, 'cause those aren't
then
those aren't girl names.
no. And so I thought, oh well, okay, I know that could be kind of interesting, and so it doesn't bother me now. I think it just has to be done for whatever reason it is. But let me finish with this, and then we can get to Insidious.
Yeah,
So I'm just going to finish off with the thing here. So committed by man. Then it says, is there a way to survive his possession? And this has Carrie Ann Moss in it from The Matrix.
nice.
Um,
Did you?
and
Oh, did you know? By the way, real quick, I'm gonna forget this if I don't say it. Lee Winnell was in The Matrix. He played Axel in Matrix Revolutions.
I did not know that, but that wouldn't surprise me because it's from they made it in Australia.
There you go. It was
And he's
before he
Australian.
was Lee Winnell, obviously, and stuff. But
I own that movie too.
yeah,
So I'll have to, yeah. So maybe YouTube will have something with that, so I don't have to watch the whole movie. But some things that I found interesting, and then we'll end this is I do not recognize one lead person in this. There is Carrie Ann Moss, Faye Dunaway.
nice. Well, you obviously recognize her, but she's not
Dunaway,
lead.
Academy Award winning Faye Dunaway is in the Bye Bye Man.
Hey man, every actor has a slump, you know.
Ugh. Yeah, and I mean, I guess good for them, good for her. I mean, the
No, it's
music is
good
by
for
the
them, not really good for her.
no, yeah, true, good point. Music is by the Newton Brothers. That's a good thing. They actually make some really good music. And the effects are by Robert Kurtzman from
Nice.
ex KMB guy. Um, so they have actually some decent people working on this. And
So
when
isn't that called K and B anymore? Or is it
no,
just called NB? Because like
I think they
K was him, Kurtzman.
um why is this? I can't see this. Based on the book.
Mm. Can't read the book because you can't say it.
That's right. Yeah, you can't go into a bookstore and say, I would like a copy of the Bye Bye Man.
Oh.
But I think it's in tiny letters, but I think it says based on the book, something. Oh, it might be based on the book and then the title of the book by Robert Damien, like Shrek or something. It's very tiny. And then there's an actual screenwriter. Stacy Title directed this. I could be a man or a woman. I don't know.
Could be.
But yeah, it looks like for something that
Stacy
this was
Keach.
based on a book. I met him once. My mom was in love with him, and I got to meet him with my mom.
Oh,
So
she must have she must have almost fainted seeing him.
oh yeah, we went to go. I'll make this quick. We went to go see a play in San Francisco that he was in, and Maxwell Caulfield, the guy from
Oh,
Grease too.
and
It was
Empire
Sleuth.
Records.
Sleuth. It was a play version of Sleuth. And
Oh,
my mom wanted to. She's like has like the biggest crush on him for like decades. And so I said, well, let's go in the back alley. Maybe they'll come out. And they
nice.
came out, and I
That
got both
sounds
their
really bad. Let's
autographs.
go in the back alley, Mom.
Go in the back alleyway, mom. And they did. Both of them came out, and I got them to sign my playbill for me. And I told him, I said, Mr. Keach, my mom has this like massive crush on you. She gets all giddy, and he kissed her. He
Oh,
leaned in and
that's
gave her a
sweet.
kiss on the cheek, and then my mom went,
I'm never gonna wash this cheek again.
yeah.
It's all
And now it's
moldy
like
and
all black, and
yeah.
yeah. So,
Uh,
but today that would be assault because he didn't get permission from her, so he just went in and did
I, I I think some people wouldn't,
it.
say anything. Like I think that's understandable. Like, when if some people don't feel comfortable, that's one thing, or whatever. Breaking their comfort level. But I think if somebody has a crush on somebody and somebody tells them they might be able to get away with that these days. I don't know. But
I think yeah.
I don't suggest it to anyone, and I don't recommend
No, it also
randomly
depends
kissing
on
people.
what your mouth is saying these days too. Like if I'm telling somebody, "Oh my God, I'm so offended by this," and then I go out and I do it, that's
Yeah.
different. But of course, this was God 30 years ago, 35 years ago. Sleuth was
Right.
so, and so as I'm sure my mom didn't. She had no problem with it. So
All right,
yeah.
so we're gonna move on to Insidious, the movie we're supposed to be talking about earlier.
Yeah.
We did. I mean, I didn't want to get all the Bye Bye Man out, so we got that done and
Yeah,
stuff.
I'm gonna watch it probably when we're done here, and I'll let you know if my opinion changes like it did of Slender Man. So, which I actually
Woo,
kind of like now. So,
we'll see. All
yeah,
right,
maybe I might have to do a second video of in defense of the Bye Bye Man, like I'm gonna do for Slender Man.
nice. A whole series, man.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, might as well.
so I'm gonna just start out by saying, so far, out of all the three Insidious movies we've watched, this is by far my favorite. Like that, like I loved it before, and stuff like that was my favorite, or whatever because of the first two. Those are the only ones I saw, or seen, or whatever. Saw because of Lee Winnell, and
And
James
James
Wan.
Wan.
Yeah. Um, but anyway, so I, when I was rewatching this, I was like, damn, this is fucking good. This is just well directed, well written. It was almost like old school poltergeist type of stuff. And I just enjoyed it immensely.
Yeah, it's funny because they put a lot of detail into this one because it's the first one.
Mm,
Like Elise puts on the gas mask
ah,
and it's got the tube that goes over to Specs, and
mm.
and he's got they seem to do a lot more of that, like kind of weird gadgets and stuff that we just don't see
Well, do you know
anymore.
why? Because I saw an interview with Lee Winnell once about this movie, and he said, and I can't quote him exactly, but the gist of what he said was that when he was doing Insidious, he thought of Poltergeist, right? He wanted to do another Poltergeist style horror film where it's a family that has to get their child back, bring their child back. But he's like, he couldn't do Poltergeist again because people had seen that movie so many times. He
Mhm.
had to do something different. And so he was like, well, what are we going to do? Seance? Everybody does seances all the time. He was like, astral projection was the thing, right? And then he was like, how are we going to show astral projection? And he was like, thinking, okay, maybe if we do these tools, certain, cool, like little things. Nobody has done that in a movie. So let's do that. So that's how he did it, which is, I think, is something that people should, horror writers especially, should take in mind of like when you're writing a script and you're like, this movie is like Friday the 13th, right? I want to make something like that. You make Friday the 13th, but you think of something a little bit differently to make it stand against Friday the 13th. So people aren't going, oh crap,
Right.
this is just Friday the 13th. People won't say that about Insidious because most people don't ever talk like, I mean, I've never really heard that many people compare this and Poltergeist,
No, because the worlds are different,
Hmm.
like in the further, and then when they go into Poltergeist, the other side, I guess.
The other side, yep.
With Poltergeist, this one is a father looking for the son instead of a mother looking for the daughter. It's the characters are, I think, more interesting in Insidious
I
than they are,
love
except for
whatever his name is from Coach. I love Coach. Craig T. Nelson. I love him to death,
oh yeah.
but I love Patrick Wilson in this movie. I think he is so fucking good as an actor. And throughout the whole thing, I'm like kind of in awe of him, while I'm watching it.
Well, and how he's very different because they were out at the same time, Conjuring and Insidious, and they're you're not going, oh, he's just doing the Conjuring guy.
Well, the first one was
It's
not, the first one came out in 2010. The Conjuring came out in 2013 after. From what I read, James Wan actually was thinking of doing The Conjuring at this, like wanted to do The Conjuring before Insidious or around the same time, but couldn't get like I guess the rights to Lorraine and the Warrens, state and stuff yet, or whatever, like, all that. So they worked on this one because from what I've also understood, Death Sentence like did terrible. Like, and so did the other one, Dead Silence. They did not do very well. So sort of James Wan and Lee Winnell were sort of in Hollywood prison in a way. Like they were sort of where nobody was hiring them because
yeah,
their two of their
I
movies had
remember that.
flopped. And
Yeah.
so Jason Blum said, hey guys, you guys are very talented. I love Saw. I think you guys can do something with $1 million, right? $1 million budget. Do you have a script? So they're like, let's do Insidious, as a script, like they made the movie and it was, I think it was a million. I think it was maybe 1.5 million, but like something like not very expensive, you know.
I
Um,
could tell you right now, you are correct. It is 1.5 million.
yeah, I thought I saw 1.5, but I wasn't sure. But like, that's still a lot, of money. And by our standards, by Hollywood standards, no, nothing. That's nothing. But if you can make a 1.5 million movie and do, a lot of, even say like 50 million off of that, that's a fucking high ass
Well,
gross.
that's why I was mentioning on one of the other videos is they did something very smart, which is they have the house. So then, as they're walking, before the whole possession and all that type of thing, or starts happening, is we're seeing the entire house, so we know the layout of the house. And then they're like, well, crap, what do we do for the further? Are we gonna like have them out in the desert or something, or what are we gonna do? Oh, we'll just use the house again. We'll just put a red light here, a blue light here, and a bunch of smoke.
Right.
And it would just use the same house. And these are the spirits, these are all the people who have like died in the house or something.
Hmm.
So you have the family that's sitting on the sofa, and the chick who's ironing, who I thought maybe was a dude, and I wasn't sure.
Well, it
But
might have been because
yeah,
there was a dude who played, actually I met, the old woman is played by Philip Friedman, and I met him at a horror convention. I think it was Blood at the Beach, and I got him to sign my Insidious poster and stuff.
nice.
Also, at that same convention, I also got to meet Jay LaRose, who plays the tall long hair guy, man, not woman, but man who sort of I don't know what he was, like a demon or something, but he wasn't the main demon, but he was like the one that the ghost that kept appearing and stuff or whatever. And um I think he was the one probably opening up the doors and shit in the movie, which we'll talk about in a little bit, I'm sure. Um
Yeah,
but
I just think that this was a good idea for them
yeah.
to just use the same sets twice.
Well,
Right there's your $1 million.
there was two houses too. They didn't use just one house, which I thought was an interesting
that's
twist.
that's something I like them going to different houses. I like that. But I mean, it's not that easy to sell a house, and it's not that easy to buy a house.
It's
You
not
got to
that
go
quick
through a
either,
lot.
you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally like they went from one house to other in like a day or two.
It felt like that. It might not have been that, but if they did not give you like a time frame kind of thing, like they
With
didn't
the
kind of.
way that Rose is acting, I would think that she would not want to stay in that house for, you have to
I
go
was
into
thinking they were going to stay
escrow.
at a
You have to.
hotel until they got everything. Like that should have been a scene, is them going from the house to staying at a hotel and waiting till they. But the thing is, what we find out is that it's, as I think, was it Elise who said it, but like it's not the house that's haunted, it's
It's the
Dalton that's
sun.
haunted. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
the son.
So it
And
doesn't matter
so
where you go.
yeah, it didn't matter where you go, which I thought was a great twist to it, or whatever, because most of the
Well,
time it's the house that's haunted.
it reminds me of Paranormal Activity.
Okay, so no matter
You
where you
know,
go, the ghost will follow.
yeah, with the wife and how she's not possessed, but she becomes possessed, but she's had this. Her and her sister have had the spirit, and the husband goes, "Well, that would have been nice to tell me." And that it just follows her from house to house. That it's not the house, it's her.
Well, I've heard that too. I've heard that supposedly people who talked about this stuff, but that some ghosts will attach themselves to people or whatever. But in this case, it's attached to the sun because he's astral projecting at that particular moment, and they're able to kind of come. There's basically a doorway that they're able to come in and come in and
Yeah.
out.
Well, and
And
the kid doesn't realize it. He thinks he's just dreaming, is what they said.
right,
Yeah, so he's
he
just doing
thinks he's
his
having
thing.
this
And
really long nightmare, I guess, because he's all freaked out by the. We find him later. He's like chained. And I think that's because the spirit didn't want him running
well,
around.
there's all those ghosts that people see, like they're coming out of the closets, and then there's the little kid that runs around. When the dad is in the further, he does come across the kid that he thinks is Dalton because he's in pajamas.
Hmm.
So I'm wondering, is that a kid from like another family who's in a coma who's stuck in there too? Because he doesn't look like one of the dead people. He
Right.
looks like Dalton. So it's like, is somebody in like another city experiencing the same thing? And but the kid just, just happens to know where Dalton is because he's been in there for so long.
There's more to it that can be like kind of cool, like kind of like if they really wanted to do like explore more with the further where all these kids, because like they mentioned Patrick Wilson has the ability to travel. He didn't know because they like suppressed it or whatever.
Right.
Um Elise has the ability to travel. We find that out and stuff through a lot more we don't really in this one, we don't really see her traveling through the further until like part 3 and 4. You see her doing that a little bit more or whatever. I think 3. Well, actually, both. I think you get to see her traveling through that. And then the mom, Barbara Hershey's character, you could explore stuff with her character because she apparently well, she knew about it. So I don't know if she
Yeah.
probably couldn't do it. So the son could, the father could, the son could, Elise can, and then Elise's niece can. That we find out later. She has the ability to do she's like that psychic ability to go into the further and stuff. So it'd be neat to like see more of that stuff. Like kind of excited for Insidious 5 because I'm hoping they dive more into the further without Elise, I guess.
Yeah, I would think that they could bring her back, just have her in the further, kind of do like a Ben Kenobi type of thing.
Hmm.
But she is, I'm looking here, she is not listed in the
No,
cast
we
at
talked about
all.
that last one on the last episode. We looked that up. She's not
Yeah,
listed in
but
the cast, and
yeah, I didn't remember if she was or not. But maybe this is not the whole cast because it is kind of written
maybe they want to
oddly.
surprise everybody. I don't know, but I
Yeah.
don't think so because this is after Insidious 1 and 2 and Insidious 1. So we find out the old lady as possessed by or possessing him chokes her to death, which was a shocking ending, you know.
Yeah, by killing, well, which makes it's weird watching these in the order that we're doing because one, I don't know if you remember in The Lost Key, is Elise is with the group of people in the further and she opens the door and she could see in the attic and she sees the kid on the ground after he fell off the ladder and the kid
Right.
looks right at her. So when I was watching this, I'm like, okay, how are they going to do that? Which must have been he falls, he kind of looks at a noise, and then it cuts to downstairs, and that's when he starts screaming. And I'm like, oh, they didn't actually like we're not okay. But it's like so I'm guessing between him looking and him screaming, that's when he saw the door open with a lace.
Right.
And so I thought that was kind of cool because they do the same type of thing in Paranormal Activity with Katie, is that the first one kind of goes back to the second, well, goes back to the last one, goes back to the first one of why
Final
we're hearing.
Destination part was it? The
Oh, the
part
last one,
Yeah, the
yeah,
last one
is the prequel to
is
the
the
first one. Yeah.
prequel to the first one. So,
So I love when they do that type of stuff. So I really liked that, and I thought it's 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 interesting to watch. Like I said, in the way that we're doing it, because this of how long it took for Elise to get in there. Like
right.
it took, I was watching the clock and it was like 50 minutes into the movie and then she shows up. So it's just like, wow, okay. Where in the other movies, she's like that. Like she's
Well,
right there.
right. And that was because those are her stories, and stuff. That was all her stuff. I think originally they had the plan to have this lady, right? There, and then they thought, it would be crazy if we kill her off. Nobody would expect it, because everybody would be like, the late Zelda Rubinstein or whatever her name was. I don't know what her
Yeah.
character name was in Poltergeist. She lived in the first one. I think she might have died in one of the other ones, but she comes back right in the second movie. I haven't seen those like second or
Yeah,
third
she
movie in
does come
forever.
back in the second. I'm not sure if she's in the third. I think
Yeah.
it's just Carol Ann is the.
Third one was a little messed up because like there was
I
a lot
liked
of
it.
problems with the set, I believe. There was a lot of issues that they had on set of that movie.
There were, well, from what Gary Sherman has said, the director, who also did Dead and Buried,
Hmm.
is that there were a lot of, it's a lot of water, and so the when I watched a kind of like a documentary about the film, is he didn't really comment that there were like curses or anything on there. It's just unfortunately of what the actress that played Carol Ann went through.
Yeah.
That's what caused her problem. She was also on a lot of drugs at the time, which is why she looks bigger. Like her face is really puffy, and people
How old
made
was she at that time?
she was only like 12 or something.
Yeah, she should not have been on that many drugs and all that other issues that she
Yeah,
had.
they a lot of like people made fun of her, and they were saying like, oh, look how fat she got. And it's like, no, that's not her like eating pizzas all day. That's the medication she's on for her intestinal disorder,
Yeah.
and it killed her, and just in that environment. And Gary Sherman kind of blames himself. I mean, he was like almost like crying while they were interviewing him, because it's like, God, my film killed this little girl.
I don't think it was her, but like, I mean, you can never blame yourself for that kind of stuff because like everybody has the choice, to do it and everything. Like,
Well,
even if you're
it's
on contract, you have the choice whether to do that or not, so
something like Alec Baldwin is different than, let's say, the guy on The Crow who actually shot Brandon Lee. Later on, he committed suicide. Like, he
yeah.
couldn't take it that he killed somebody else, and it wasn't his fault at all. He was just doing what he was told to do, and the gun should have been checked, and it wasn't. And he ended up killing himself because of it.
Well, it's also, I mean, this isn't a movie set, but like a friend of mine passed away from a what is it, car accident that she was driving and the other guy lived, her boyfriend lived, and then like 2 years later he killed himself, over it,
Yeah, survivor's guilt.
survivor's guilt. Yeah. I mean, it's a terrible thing because, but I mean, there's nothing, like it's just you can't you can't blame yourself for any of this shit, and that guy can't blame his movie set for her because it just, you know, I don't know. I can't blame I can blame Alec Baldwin necessarily because he actually had he was a producer.
Yeah.
He should have known like there's a lot of things that, and I whether or not I think he knew what he was doing, I think he was negligent. And that
So
causing a homicide should get you prison
oh
time
yeah.
for it.
Well, Heather O'Rourke, I feel that we
Heather
should
O'Rourke. Yep, that was her
should
name.
give her respect, and not just say the little girl who
Yeah,
played, the
sorry,
villain.
sorry, Heather.
So
We love you.
yeah, so
Don't haunt
Heather
us.
O'Rourke. So it was very
Don't haunt
unfortunate.
us.
Yeah. So it's well, and now, as I'm sure, I mean, we haven't heard anything bad from the Conjuring movies. We haven't heard anything bad happening on Insidious, and
Yeah,
the
I
I
mean,
did watch a little bit of a behind the scenes of the first Insidious movie today, and it looked like everybody was having a great time. It looked like they were
right.
really having fun on the set, and they kept talking about how like James Wan is like a little kid. He's like an adult
Yeah.
little kid because he kept playing with the kids on set. So it's to which I guess that you kind of have to with the type of film that it is.
Well,
You
because you have to keep their sort of spirits up and you gotta, keep them energetic and happy because kids, especially on like, look, there are adults who hate movie sets because a lot of it is waiting around and
yeah.
stuff. It's like, we shoot for like uh maybe 2 minutes if whatever, right? And then it's got to check the light. You got to do this, you got to do that. And so little kids, I'm always like fascinated. Like I remember actually shooting a kid. Not no, no, not that's terrible for my movie. And that shooting, like, like, oh God,
You were filming a kid.
I was filming a kid. Oh God. All right. I was filming a kid, and she was the smartest, brightest kid I've ever met in my life. Um, so I had a shirt, and I was an idiot, but I had a shirt that said director on it, right? And I was talking to
Of
this like, I don't know,
course.
8-year-old kid, and I was like, "Hey, how are you doing? I'm the director." And she looks at my shirt, and she goes, "Yeah, I can tell."
Duh.
I was like, ouch, man. I'm already gonna get zingers from this kid. That's awesome. You
Kids
know?
can be mean. They can be cruel.
No, it
So
wasn't
it's
mean. It was funny. It was cute and funny and made me enjoy that moment right there because that was my first, no, second time directing kids, No, first time directing kids. I'm sorry. Yes. That was my first time directing kids because it was a ghost short too called The Invited. And it was, yeah, and at first I was scared to direct kids. I had never done it before. And I've always heard like, you don't want to direct kids or animals. Those are
right.
the two hardest things things to direct. But I had such a fun time. Maybe I was just lucky. Knock on wood, that keeps happening. But it was, I mean, they knew exactly how to say the lines because their moms would go over it with them. And so I didn't have to really, even do much directing for kids. I know some people it might be harder, to deal.
Well, and these kids so far, the kids that they've gotten for both Conjuring and Insidious have been very good. I don't think any of the kids in the Annabelle movies or the Conjuring films or the two the brothers that were in Insidious, the first one, they
Hmm.
were all good actors. So they were all so a lot of it, yeah, I think probably has to do with the director and stuff like that. You could probably if you just don't like kids and you'd probably get a crappy performance out of them. But if you like kids, you know,
Yeah, if you have fun
then
time like James Wan running around talking to them and hanging out with them, and whatnot, and
well, that
make
was the
them
thing
feel,
that was Spielberg back in the day. If you look at stuff like Jaws and Close Encounters, E.T., I mean, he loves kids, and
yeah,
he was known as a kids director for a long
Hook.
time. Yeah,
I
Hook,
mean,
all the kids in that,
yeah.
and
So I mean,
even
he,
his story in Twilight Zone was kick the can with the
hell,
old
even
people that become
Jurassic
little kids.
Park, the original Jurassic Park had kids, so
Yeah,
um he loves directing kids, because he's a big fucking kid. Like himself, like, or at least he was. I don't know how he acts now, but back then he was a kid. Like kind of like James Wan. He's a kid in a candy store. He's so happy and he's
right.
excited to do this. And so I love that kind of attitude. And then the kids in this movie were great. Um, you know, Dalton, that dude went on to be on like Iron Man 3 and stuff, and Nice Guys and a bunch of other stuff that what's his name did. Uh Shane Black, used him a lot and stuff.
Oh, okay.
So and I thought that kid was a great actor. He mostly had to act in a coma. you know. So he didn't really have that hard of a
Yeah.
job in this movie, but man, wouldn't it be nice to just have a whole job where most of the time you just lay still and not do anything? Like just you're just
Yeah, and he could still breathe and everything. He's not dead. It's not like one of those things where you have to stop breathing because you're
yeah.
dead. No, he's alive. He's just in this coma.
Have you ever done that? Have
Well,
you ever had to
coma.
be dead? in the
Yeah,
movie.
in Zomghouls, it was awful. Is Mike Ferguson killed? He pulls me out of a car and kills me, and I was trying to hold my breath, and I think you could see on film my stomach going up and down a little bit because it's like I could hold it. And it's like, okay, use that. I'm
Yeah,
holding
but you're
it,
yeah.
and
Like you
then
don't want to die actually because you're
yeah,
holding
it's like,
your breath too long.
and you could see it, and I told him, I said maybe you should just use a still, to just like do a screen grab and just use that so that my stomach's not moving. But yeah,
I
it's
I
not
did it
easy.
once too, and for my first acting job where I wrote the script but I wasn't directing, and it was for this movie called The Closet, and like it was me and Devaney Penn, and Devaney Penn had to climb over me, and so they asked me, "Do you want to have your eyes shut or eyes open?" Next time somebody asks me that, fucking shut, because like that was the worst day of my life because they had to take this whole shot where they're tracking around and they kept it on me, right? And she grabs me at one point. She like literally grabs me and she goes around and everything. And I'm supposed to be dead, opening my eyes, and we did this like one take and it was almost cut. And then all of a sudden my eyes blinked because I mean they just had to at that particular moment. I was gonna start crying, you know?
I think it's, and this is even in like Dark Knight Rises, and I friggin' hate it. I think it's bad directing if you're dead and your eyes are shut. You don't die with your eyes shut. You die with your eyes open. If you're unconscious, your eyes are shut. So if
Right.
you're knocked out, yeah, your eyes are closed. But if you're dead, like unless you die in your sleep, your eyes are open, and it's much creepier to have your eyes open. So
Oh
especially in
yeah.
a
Oh, it was a
horror
great
movie,
shot. When we
yeah,
finished it,
it's
I saw it and it was like that was great because we did get it. We finally got it but like I remember the DP, we were shooting it and everything was and then I blinked and he goes, "Hey, blinked." And I was like, "Damn it." Oh man, we have to do it all over again. And that was the hard thing is like doing shot after shot, or
well,
whatever.
that's why the a lot of people when they're dead, they're you don't see their face, like
Yeah.
their arms are like this,
Yeah.
so then that
They
way they,
cover their face
yeah,
or
or their
something.
heads turn the other way or something like that, or
Yeah.
so it's but it's yeah, I think, yeah, if you're dead, your eyes have to be open. It's
Yeah.
much creepier.
It's
So
much creepier and it's real. So like, like why change it? But anyway, go back to the movie we're talking about. Um,
well, and also one thing I liked about this, which is also kind of paranormal activity ish, is I like that the stuff that we see in the regular world, like when we hear like a knock on the door and stuff, that's actually the dad in the further.
oh
So like,
shit.
yeah, like when the husband and wife are upstairs and they hear somebody knocking on the front door
That
and
was
he goes
actually
down to
back in
see,
time. That's him when
that
he
would
was
be the further, that would be him with the kid in the further, trying to get like knocking on the front door of the house.
so he has no idea that that's him in the future, I guess,
Yeah,
or
so
whatever.
it's, yeah, so that door being open and all that stuff is him. That's all him.
So that goes to the idea of ghosts though, right? Like are ghosts, when they knock on the door, when we open, is it a ghost from the future and somewhere else trying to get in our house?
It might be you. It could
Might
be
be me.
you.
I don't
Yeah.
know. So I sent you that video. What did you think that meditation video?
I have not watched it yet.
Well, I mean, it's
I've been
it's literally just music to them doing. I mean, it's supposed to be you closing your eyes and listening to music that's gonna apparently make
I
you
mean,
astral
I've
project.
tried to do meditation and all that stuff. I used to, and I thought of
But did
doing
you
it
ever
again.
try to
Is
astral project?
in a way, maybe, but I mean, I don't believe any of that stuff, anyways.
You
But
don't believe in an
maybe,
outer body experience?
no, not at all. No, it's all fake. Because they've done plenty of experiments where somebody will die on the operating table, and above them on like a locker, there'll be like a picture or handwriting or something like that will be up there, And they'll
Mm-hmm.
the, the person will say, "Oh yeah, I floated out of my body and I could see my body. I went up and I went past the ceiling." And the doctor will be like, "Okay, well, there's a sign up there. What did it say?" "Oh, I don't know." "Yeah, because it never happened." And your brain fires off these neurons, and actually, I have a movie called The Lazarus Effect actually really explains it well. And so no, I don't believe in any of that. But I would come home from work and I'd sit on my bed and I would have music playing, and I would really try to like have my brain just go blank, like just kind of sleep, not be in like a deep sleep, but just kind of sleep, kind of get work out of my head and get prepared for what I was going to do, which was at the time, I think, probably writing.
Right.
And so it wasn't astral projecting, but it was almost kind of like a meditation, almost like being in between sleep and not sleep, and just trying to not focus on anything, but just get all that crap out of my head so then I could do something else.
But yeah, so to go back real quick, to the knocking on the door. Um, you know me, I've told you this before. I knocking creeps me out, or whatever, people knocking on doors or whatever and whatnot in movies. Ghost knocking or whatever. So and I've sort of talked about I don't like knocking, period. Like I know there's a thing, I forgot what it's I keep always forget what it's called, even though it happens to me all the freaking time, is I will hear knocking, right? And while I'm dreaming, you know, and stuff. And apparently if you knock when you're dreaming, it's called something. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, I've never heard of that. No.
It's called it's something like
I know when they say like if you die in your dream, that means that you're gonna die like soon, like a car accident or whatever it is. And I have found that to be total garbage because I used to have a reoccurring zombie dream where my neck would get ripped out. It would be through my own POV, and my neck would get ripped out, and I could see myself falling and kind of fading, and I'm still alive. So I don't think any of that stuff is real.
it was like something head explosion or something. Head ex exploding head syndrome. Exploding head syndrome. You ever heard of that?
No, I have no idea.
Yeah, it sounds cool, but yeah, exploding head syndrome. It's is a type of sleep disorder in which you hear a loud noise or explosive crashing sound in your head. The sound isn't real or heard by anyone else. The episode typically happens suddenly, either when you're beginning to fall asleep or when you wake up, you know, during sleep. And
Mm-mm.
I I've had that plenty of happen, like something just like bang, bang, and just like I woke up and I thought it was like knocking or something, somebody knocking on the door or something, and it's creeped me the fuck out. And
Yeah,
I
no
I
idea.
don't know. I guess it's a sleep disorder that I have because it's happened more than once, and I think it supposedly happens when you don't got enough like sleep, like REM sleep or whatever. But it freaks me out, and I things like that are things like wow, I just love it when stuff's explored in films, like I would love Exploding Head Syndrome. That even sounds like a great title. Exploding Head, syndrome. Sounds like Scanners or something, you
Well, but
know.
but I mean, this stuff was they actually heard it though. It wasn't in their head.
Right, it wasn't in their head. It was well, it was the future. They heard it. They really heard it, but it wasn't really
Well, but
nobody.
is it in the future? If you're hearing knock 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 knock, and then he goes downstairs, and then in the further the dad is holding the
So
kid doing knock 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 and run
maybe
away.
the dad's in the past then, I guess, right?
I think that they're simultaneous because it's just knock 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 knock. They hear it upstairs. The dad comes down, and there's nobody there because the dad's already walked away.
Would this be
He's
like a multiverse kind of thing, like a different universe, Is that what the further is? You see what I'm saying?
uh, uh, uh I mean I mean, like Elise said, like the dad's not supposed to be there.
Right. She even says
So
she
he might
says that, and she says also keep like 1 foot in the regular world, or whatever, and 1 foot in the astral world, which I think was weird because like, how can you typically do that? Like, he didn't actually do that. He was all the way in the astral world, or he was all the way in the real
Maybe
world.
that he has to keep in his brain that he where he's at, what he's doing, that
Yeah.
this, that he doesn't have to be there, but kind of maybe like once he falls for it, maybe he gets stuck in there. Kind of
Yeah.
like the kid, that the kid didn't
Well,
realize what it was,
yeah,
so he
the
got
kid had
stuck.
no idea, and that was the thing. And the kid didn't have like, oh, nobody told the kid, you know, what to do or whatever. But man, yeah, that's like,
I do like when the dad looks at all the this kind of cracked me up. So everybody's in the house, the kids right there. I think it's Barbara Hershey who's telling the story of Patrick Wilson as a kid, and then they hear that huge disturbance, and then the kid's room gets all messed up, and he's on the
mm,
floor. We then cut, it's then cut back to it's all clean, all the pictures are pinned to the wall again, and it's like, was that really important? I mean, the whole room got messed up, the kid's in a coma, he's not going to know if there's pictures on the wall. I
well,
mean, why not just throw all that stuff in a box? Why go through the whole hassle of repinning all of his posters and everything up? But I did like how, and I guess they wouldn't be able to do it when Patrick Wilson realizes that what Elise is telling him is true by the pictures,
right,
that the kid isn't just drawing Superman,
yeah,
that he's actually doing it. But I also find it funny that because this goes along with what you texted me, where Elise says that is my mother's name.
mm,
So continuity wise, yeah, that's off because according to part 4, she's already dead. So it
yep,
should be was her mother's name.
mm-hmm,
But if so if the other ones are prequels, her going into the kid's room and seeing those pictures, she should already know what's going on because
mm-hmm,
she's already had the red door. She's already dealt with the guy who looks like Darth Maul. She should already know all this stuff.
yeah. Well, once again, yes, you're right, because I think they put themselves into a hole when they tried to tie both the movies together and stuff. Like, I get it. I'm like, that's kind of cool. Like, all right, so we'll tie in this door that'll lead to this thing. That okay, awesome. Problem is, you're making continuity errors. You're kind of making little loopholes and issues, with it and
Yeah.
stuff. And you know, and well, I mean, just like you kind of talked about in Bye Bye Man, you were nitpicking about. I mean, I just let all that go because I thought to myself when they made the first Insidious, they had idea that it was gonna be, there's probably gonna be a part two, but they didn't do a part two till like 3 years later, I don't think, or something. Like I think it was part two wasn't till like 2013 or
Um,
14, if I'm correct. Um, when
let's
was
see.
it?
So Insidious is 2010 and
Chapter two is 2013.
13. Yeah, there were a few years apart from them. So yeah, Insidious is, well, actually says here 2011,
Which
then
is crazy
2013, then
because James Wan directed The Conjuring
2014.
in 2013, same year, and those both came out the same year. So he had two films that he directed that came out back to back, and both are in the
Ugh.
that are
And
similar.
I do want to bring up that you sent me a text with the guy who's writing Insidious 5, Fear the Dark. And yeah, I didn't realize this. I'm not happy with this. Halloween Kills, yeah, Firestarter, and then he's also doing The Exorcist.
Well, he
He's
has the
doing,
story for The
yeah, story
Exorcist,
for
so I'm
Exorcist.
wondering,
Yeah.
which means he'll probably come in on the second one if they do the same thing that they did with Halloween Kills, or whatever, because he came in on the second one of that, so he'd be in the second Exorcist too. Yeah, I'm not excited about that either, but I'm I'm gonna give these guys a chance because it's Patrick Wilson taking over as the director, and I think he wouldn't let this guy fuck anything up, or whatever. But Jason Blum, stop hiring terrible writers for your
Well,
shit
it's
and then over and over again, you know?
because he did this film called the Evening Sun, and then he did a documentary film. Um, oh, Holbrook and Twain, American Odyssey. So that's Hal Halbrook when he played Mark Twain. It's when he did that tour, which is pretty famous. But then he did a film called The Quarry, and I thought, okay, maybe that's a horror film, and it's not. It's a mystery thriller that he directed. And Michael Shannon is, I think, like the only person that's really well known in it. So that it's, I'm not seeing a connection for, let's say, James Wan. I mean, the budget of The Quarry is $4.4 million, so he could shoot on a low budget. But
Yeah.
I don't see like, oh look, hey, let's get the guy who made The Quarry. Maybe I'll have to try to find that. It's a couple years old now, so maybe it's available somewhere to maybe see what his
He's not
directing is
directing
like.
it though, so I mean, at least he's only writing it. Um,
Yeah, it'd be just kind of interesting to see because if we're going strictly off of writing, Halloween Kills and Firestarter, and he was one of the producers on Firestarter. So I
and he
I don't
wrote he
know.
wrote a bunch of TV stuff too. Like he wrote
They list two things here:
like Rectify and
Narcos,
Narcos Mexico.
but what
So
that was one episode.
one
So
episode and Rectify was 13. So he's had some and I don't here's my thing. Like who else wrote Firestarter? Because he probably wasn't the only writer on that. He was listed. Okay. So then he
mm,
that could also be the director to blame too. Keith Thomas, who I don't know who he is. Um,
um,
that guy did a movie called The Vigil. I think I've heard of that, but I haven't seen it. Uh,
mm, it's not the one that I'm thinking of. Um, but yeah, Vigil, Firestarter. Once again, I don't really know. Did that an episode of the Cabinet of Curiosities?
yeah, he did. Yeah, the
It,
Guillermo del Toro movie or series. But
yeah,
I
it's interesting how these people get, because you were mentioning to me the other day, maybe even yesterday, that it was like if you make a short film, it should kind of reflect what you want to make. But
mm,
these guys don't seem to be doing that. I mean, The Quarry has nothing to do with Halloween Kills, Firestarter, Insidious, Exorcist.
I mean, maybe there was something in the quarry that they
Well, that's
saw,
why I kind of want to see it. I want to see.
because we saw that one short that guy made, and it definitely felt like a Conjuring kind of thing, like the director of Curse of La Llorona and stuff,
But see,
definitely
yeah, that made sense.
yeah, that made sense. He was perfect for that. So I don't know, but see, here's the thing, Hollywood, and this speaks for Blumhouse too. This isn't just Hollywood, but like Marvel, right? They will see somebody make like the guy who made Clown, produced Clown. Yeah, I think he also might have done Cop Car or something. Later on, he directs the Spider-Man movies, John Watts, you know, right? But he started in horror, you know, and because they saw he did a low budget horror film, and made a pretty good budget back or whatever, did well. Like I wouldn't be surprised if Marvel tried to snatch up Damien Leone because Terrifier 2 did really well, did millions of dollars on a $500,000 less, budget. I think it was 250K budget.
But that's the problem with what I think Marvel is doing is you're taking these low budget independent filmmakers like hence the woman who made, I think it was the movie Nomad, and then you're giving her the Eternals, and it's like, what? They're like the complete opposite, and of course the Eternals bombed. So when you
Well,
keep
she's the
giving,
one, from what I've understood, she's the one who came in and pitched it to them, and they loved it and said, "You can make that," you know.
it was a
So,
horrible choice, and that goes for men or women. If you're going to be doing something that's really small and independent, you may have to kind of work your way up
but
to it.
and you know what? And this is going to go very much to your point. But I read somewhere that one of the Marvel executives, not Kevin Feige, but like one of the Marvel executives says they don't want fans of Marvel to be directing their movies. They want people
That
who
makes no sense.
made something, award winning or horror or whatever that made, that showed that they can actually direct, whatever. Really, really what they want, and I mean this really what they want is somebody who is going to uh to listen to them. They don't want somebody. That's why Scott Derrickson left and went back to Blumhouse, and did the Black Phone, just because he wanted to go a different way with Dark, was it Doctor Strange 2, and Marvel didn't. Marvel wanted to I think make it more about Scarlet Witch, and they wanted to change all this up. Scott Derrickson was like, I don't want to do that. This is what I want to do. And they're like, they couldn't agree. So he said, well, I'm going to go work with a company that just lets me make whatever I want, And
Right.
and Blumhouse can do that, and that's sort of what they did with the to scoot back to Insidious, to get back to the movie we're talking about. That's sort of what I think Blumhouse was really good at doing, was taking a movie like Insidious, where and giving them the creators control. Jason Blum doesn't come in and say, "Oh, well, you need to do this and you need to do that." It's interesting though. They did try to hire Ethan Hawke as the lead, from what I read. And so don't quote me on that, but I read that Ethan Hawke was offered the role that Patrick Wilson got.
Huh.
I'm very glad he turned it down and went, and
Yeah,
then
me too.
later on did in Sinister and all the other stuff that he did, including Black Phone. But he turned it down, and I think probably because it just wasn't right for him. But they did offer him the role, and then they ended up going Patrick Wilson, the better.
No, it turned out well because he's good in Sinister. So,
Yeah. So
you
like
know,
all the decisions that have been made so far, mostly with a lot of the older films with them up to probably Get Out and maybe Happy Death Day 1. Um maybe 2. Some people like 2. But then after
I
that,
like both of them.
a lot of people, they're not happy with a lot of what they've turned into, like Truth or Dare, a lot of people didn't like, or
That was garbage.
Fantasy Island,
Garbage. Made by the same
um
filmmakers.
things like that. So they,
Yeah.
I think, but Happy Death Day 1 and 2 are fun little movies and stuff, and
Yeah,
um,
part two, I have some major issues with, but it's I still like it. I would like for them to make a third one to kind of end it. So, well, I don't know if you've been seeing this for the last couple of days, stuff about since to kind of get back to James Wan, Aquaman 2.
what about it?
Th- they've said the film is unreleasable. That, and this has been verified, that there's two screenings, one with Amber Heard, like normal, like the way they would normally be, and then one with her like mostly cut out. And both versions, everybody's walking out. Like
Because
people are,
once they see Amber,
no, they haven't said it's because of Amber Heard, but they're saying that it's those are the two screenings that people are walking out of. They're also saying it's boring, it's confusing, and it's a huge, and they're just saying it's a mess. And this has been verified that that's why they keep pushing the movie, isn't necessarily because of Amber Heard, that it's just because it's a bad movie. So we might have another
well, are
Batgirl.
they gonna cut it? Are they gonna like do what they Batwoman it? Where they're just not gonna release it?
I don't. It may get to that point. Who knows? Because it's if it's gonna fail, then I still think that they should just release everything
Release it
as
because
is.
make as much money as you possibly can. You're
Just put it on HBO.
by
Just do.
not even yeah, but by even putting it in the theaters, I guess if you put it in the theaters, you have
Then you
to
got to do like a ton of promotion and all that type of stuff for
yeah,
it.
so you're gonna spend more money.
Because
Yeah,
really, it's now what they're saying with Ant-Man 3, the film has to make $600 million
at
to
least.
just break even,
Right.
because they spent $1 million alone on the Super Bowl ad. The film will never reach that. Never. They're saying it is actually that the Eternals was the lowest rated out of all the Marvel movies.
Now it's
That and
probably
now it's Ant-Man 3 has actually taken that spot.
I like Ant-Man 3. I don't know. I
It,
enjoyed it.
it's getting a it did well its opening 3 days because it had the President's
I was
Day.
part of that.
There you go. And then second week, it had a 70% drop off.
Ugh.
So nobody is coming back. Nobody's going for a second
I'm not
viewing.
going
People
back
aren't
because it costs
staying.
fucking $11 to go see a goddamn movie. So
Well, yeah,
that's
they're saying also you got to throw in inflation, ticket prices, and all that. So these film studios have to watch out what they're doing. And if Aquaman 2 is not going to make any money, I mean, I'll see it just because it's James Wan. I like the first Aquaman. I didn't even have a problem with Amber Heard because that's before all the shit happened. But I mean, I like the first one, but I guess the second one is just a giant mess.
well, I
So
guess we'll find out what happens to it. I don't know. Uh,
there could be a lot of tinkering because it's they. I think what they should do is they should just release all the Zack Snyder stuff, put it on like HBO Plus. Just put it on that, and that includes Batgirl, the Flat, all that. Just put it on there, and just let people watch it, and then start with the James Gunn stuff, and then if he wants to continue with Aquaman or go with Lobo, then kind of start stuff over again. Because James Wan, as we know, has a very good track record.
mhm.
So there has to be, and we brought this up with like Fast and the Furious. I mean, he even had to deal with, the death of his lead actor.
Mhm.
So I mean, if he could pull that off, what's wrong with Aquaman 2?
Right. I don't know. I think it's just you're right. It's probably tinkering. People, too many cooks in the kitchen kind of thing, where too many people are having, com you know, conflicting opinions. You know. So
Yeah. Too many chefs, and it's just like, well, we got to fix this thing, and like maybe it didn't need to be fixed.
right.
Maybe just leave it as is. Just give Amber Heard her parts. Same thing with the Flash. Nobody likes Ezra Miller, but it's like just release the movie as it is, because the word of mouth has been that it's actually pretty good and he's good in it.
Yep.
So I would watch it even with him. I won't go pay for it in the theater.
Mm.
I'll watch it on streaming.
I
But
don't think I'll go to the theater because I don't know. I'm very picky right now. I didn't mind seeing Ant-Man. Uh and I probably will see all the Marvel stuff, but I'll probably wait for all the stuff in the theater. I know for streaming, and I know people say like that's the problem is if people wait for streaming, then they're not going to be paying for the ticket, and then they're not, but I'm like, I mean, without me, I think the movie's still going to do fine if it's going to do, you know what I mean? Like it's
from what I understand from what you just said is a myth, and it's been debunked, that people are saying, oh, it's COVID, or it's, well, people are now used to streaming, so they're not going to go see it in the theater. Well, Spider-Man No Home proved them wrong. Top Gun
Mhm.
Maverick proved them wrong. I mean, it's people will go to the theater. The problem is they're just not getting good movies.
Well, I didn't
You, you know,
I won't go to the theater if the movie is streaming at the same time that it's out. Now, that was a smart thing of them, not doing that anymore. Uh, but like Halloween Ends is a perfect example. I saw that on HBO Max instead of
so did I.
watching it in the theater, and I'm so glad I did because even though I had the free at that time I had the free pass and stuff sort of thing because I was paying $20 and I was already paying for it, or whatever. But yeah. So um
Yeah, it depends. I mean, I'll go like Creed 3 comes out on the 3rd. So I'm gonna go see Creed 3. And so I'll pay for that. And then Children of the Corn is, I don't know if that's limited or not, but if it's in the theater, I'll probably check it out. And then Scream, of course. So there are certain movies that I would definitely go see,
yeah, I'll see Scream
but
probably, but
I don't know if I'm gonna go catch. I know I'm not going to see any Marvel stuff, and I don't know if I'm going to catch any of
DC
the
stuff.
DC stuff because I know eventually it will be on
Streaming,
HBO.
yeah. Hold on
Yeah,
one second, I
so
gotta let my dog out. Sorry, he was wanting to go
it's okay.
outside.
Yeah,
Um,
so it's unfortunate because I not that James Wan needs, because as you just mentioned, well, if I don't go, they're not going to lose any money. It's not like he really needs our support, but it's nice to support a filmmaker that we like.
exactly. And I like
So
him, and I think he's still gonna be I think he's still gonna bring his A game, for it. I just think editing and other things, maybe there's just too many people saying, "Oh, we should do this, we should do that, we should," and it's just gonna be a jumbled mess, be confusing or whatnot. So I have no idea, but we'll see what people say. And
yeah.
I'm like, I don't know. I don't really, I mean, it's, it's so funny. You said you would probably might see the DC stuff in the theater, but you wouldn't see Marvel. And I'm exact opposite. I'd rather see Marvel and not see the DC.
Oh no, 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 no! I'm not going to go see. I won't go see the DC stuff in the theater. I'll watch it streaming because I know it's on HBO Max. That will come out on that
Yeah.
soon enough. So
And I
and
will too, but
that's
I
so.
won't. But I'll also see Marvel, all of it.
I have no desire. I mean, to unfortunately see that stuff, but I will. I would give money to go see the Nun 2. I'll go see. I'll for Conjuring 5. I'll give money for that
Horror's
because
killing it.
yeah, I mean it's stuff, especially from filmmakers that that we like. I mean, and speaking of that, because I know that we have to wrap this up soon, um just to let people know, Megan is coming out on Blu-ray and it is unrated, which I was really hoping that they would do, but just to let people know that this is how well these things do. So Megan's budget, 12 million. The film is made $172.4 million
Nice.
for Megan. I mean, that's amazing.
And it
And
greenlit a sequel.
oh, really? Did
Hmm.
they?
Yeah. They're
Oh,
gonna make
sweet.
a sequel. It's just not gonna be like now, but I think it's gonna be in a couple
Well, that'd
couple
be cool.
years they'll put it out, or whatever.
Well, they got
And
to figure out something decent because the only thing I could think of, because I was thinking of like what would a sequel be, is there's like 1,000 Megans and the military has her and they're sending her overseas
I,
something like that.
she
And
goes and fights for Ukraine.
yeah,
Is that what they're gonna do?
fights the Russians.
Dude, could you
So
imagine that? So I'm just picturing in my head like a soldier from Russia is like about to kill somebody, and then Megan walks up, goes, "Hi, how are you doing?" Right? And then starts doing some somersaults and some fucking
so doing
shit
her
and
arms all
dancing and shit. And he's like, "What the fuck?" And then she pulls
you
out a knife and he's
American.
like, runs, or gun, and he starts
Yeah.
running away from her. That's a funny idea. You should tell Jason Blum that. Maybe you'll get the writing credit for the sequel,
Yeah,
you know.
they just got to come up with something good. So it's to do it because otherwise it will just be Chucky or something else
Well,
that's not
actually,
very
we sort
original.
of learned that they can't really handle political discussion movies necessarily that well. They Them I've heard was terrible, and that was sort of you know,
Yeah, I still want to see that because of Kevin Bacon, but it's I've heard it's not very good.
yeah,
But
I'll
it's
probably watch it soon. Just
it's tough because when you were back in the 80s and you had stuff like Red Dawn and Rocky 4 and all this stuff, we were all about destroying Russia as Russia was about destroying us. So we would stand up in the theaters, and yeah, when like a Russian got shot. These days, yeah, you can't really do have Megan kill a Russian because there are people out there that support Russia and don't like Ukraine because they have done some stuff. And then you have
Mm.
people who defend Ukraine, because
Oof.
Russia has done some stuff. So it's you got to go back to Nazis, I guess, is the only, maybe a
Yeah,
Nazi scientist gets a hold of Megan's program and makes little,
that's true.
instead
Like
of
Nazis are
Megan, she make
like the only thing you can universally say you're against, or
yeah,
white supremacists, which goes to neo-Nazis, or whatever.
yeah,
Because, I mean, there might be people who support, neo-Nazis, but those are just other neo-Nazis, or whatever. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Nobody would go, yeah, let's make them, neo-Nazi, let's hang out with neo-Nazis, unless they are neo-Nazis. So anyway,
yeah. And then so I'm curious of when does Megan come out on Blu-ray?
Megan comes out. I'm not sure.
Because I know I'm going to buy it first day. It's one of those movies that I'll actually pay the full price on. So
Let's see. I'm
so it's
finding it
on,
right now.
yeah, it's on Peacock, like you had mentioned before. So it's on, it's I don't know the exact date in February. Oh,
March
maybe
21st. So that's
March.
when Megan
Really?
will be on Blu-ray.
Man, that's too far
But
away.
you can have early access and buy the UHD on Prime or whatever.
Huh.
And is it
Yeah.
unrated or I think this is the rated version. Yeah, this is the PG-13 version. So you
Yeah.
have to
Just have to
wait.
wait.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't check. No, he's on Peacock. I'm wondering if the uh Lena, do I have to sign in?
Let's see. Yeah, Megan premiered on the streaming service Peacock on February 24th. So it just came out.
In
The
Peacock.
DVD and Blu-ray is expected to be released March 21st of this year, with all formats receiving an unrated version. So right now, yeah, it could be the theatrical version. Well,
Uh
after March 21st, and
oh
it looks like it.
shit. On Peacock it says watch the all new unrated version with
Oh,
never before seen footage only on Peacock. So there you
okay.
go. So
All right.
I
Sweet.
would suggest if you want to watch it now, go order Peacock. I mean, it's only $5, a month.
So,
It's
uh,
really Peacock. I mean, thankfully, it's only $5 a month, and it's not that bad. I think I pay a little extra for the non-commercials and stuff or whatever. But you know, um, anyway, yeah, there you go. So
and then our yeah, so I'll definitely look forward to that. And so our last thing here would be for Insidious, money wise. So its budget, as we already discussed, is 1.5 million. The box office on this film, 100.1 million. It was
perfect,
just, it was just a little bit of a hit, just a little bit.
just a little bit. No,
Just a little bit. And I got to say, I actually watched the other day Death Sentence, and it's really sad to me that Death Sentence and Dead Silence just didn't do well, because Death Sentence is a good movie. It's actually the sequel to Death Wish. It's based on the book Death Sentence, which is the sequel to the book Death Wish, but they revamped it to make it its own thing. But Kevin Bacon is good in it, and it's the unrated version.
so Kevin Bacon is Charles Bronson.
I guess in the book he's that character, yeah,
It's
but not
crazy.
in the movie. But it's I question the ending a little bit of it. Um, but otherwise, and Lee Whannell is in it, but he plays one of the gang members, and they all have so many tattoos and piercings and everything that it's hard to tell which one he is. He has some lines of dialogue, but he's not like one of the main gang guys that gets killed by himself, like with Kevin Bacon. I think
Now,
he gets killed with like a group of them.
right. And I don't think he was in Dead Silence. So I thought that was a little weird that he had a movie that he did with James that he didn't act in, or whatever. Um, but he's obviously so great as Specs. We've talked about him a million times as Specs, and in the first Insidious, I mean, those two guys are just so much fun together, like just bickering, all the time. It's just kind of
Oh
funny.
yeah, they're really funny. They're
He's
really good. I
Specs and Tucker.
yeah, I would like to see a spinoff with him. Yeah, he's not listed in the cast for Dead Silence. Donnie Wahlberg is, and he plays the detective. Does he play the same detective that from Saw?
I think it's the same detective, probably not.
Let's see who wrote Dead Silence. Well, the
Anyone
story
know?
is by James Wan. Yeah, Lee Winnell. Yeah, so he just didn't act in it.
Yeah, that's what I was saying because those guys did
God,
like
yeah,
originally they wrote together, and I don't.
it bombed. It bombed. The budget was 20 million and it only made 22.4. That's a bomb. Let's see.
Uh, I was laughing because I told you before I was watching Entourage, right? And they had the bit with Aquaman. I was watching all that stuff, and they were like, "What is he? They projecting?" They're like, "They're projecting 95 mil." It's like, well, how much do we need to get? It's like 95 mil. Like you get anything under 95 mil, and you're gonna be, working at Dairy Queen or whatever after this. Like you're
Yeah,
not.
it at least has to make back twice its budget.
Right. And so when they were asking Vince what he would say for Aquaman, well, how much would which would he guess? They said, how about 50 mil? And he was like, what, too low? And he was like, yeah, that's that'll kill us, like and that's the truth. Anything less than whatever, you have to make it, especially if it has like James Cameron in it, because we know James Cameron movies are just any any of those movies are always monster hits.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah.
even
Well,
though
for
I have not seen Avatar 2.
I'll see it when it comes out on streaming. So I don't think James is hurting without our box office money. So
Yeah, I think
um,
he's.
for Death Sentence, so it had a totally different writer, Ian McKinsey Jeffers.
Oh, I thought Lee wrote it.
No, based on Death Sentence by Brian Garfield, and it's 6 months after Death Wish. Well, in here he's called Paul Benjamin, not Paul Kersey, has moved from New York City to Chicago. So yeah,
Wait,
it is a
not in Death Sentence. He's named Nick Hume.
yeah, they totally changed it. And man, this did oh wow. Its budget was 20 million. It only made 17. That's bad.
The writer of this Death Sentence also did The Gray, and I want to see what that did because he hasn't made a movie since The Gray.
Is that the
Um,
Liam Neeson?
yeah, I mean it grossed 79 mil on its 25 mil budget, so I mean I guess it made the money, but I don't know. Maybe this guy just hasn't had anything, wanting to do or something. But that was really Death Sentence and The Gray are his only movies.
Huh.
You know, um,
Yeah, it
Mc-
says here, yeah, film adaptation, Death Wish 2 borrows from the book, borrows some elements from the book, but it ultimately contrasts with the book's storyline, characters, and setting. In 2007, a film based on the novel, though completely different storyline, was made starring Kevin Bacon and directed by James Wan.
wow, crazy.
So yeah,
Well, all right. I guess we're about at that time.
yeah.
So we got one more Insidious movie to do,
Chapter two. Chapter two.
chapter two, and then we're doing a ranking, you know, and then we're gonna have 5 or 6 more episodes to do, before we'll take a little bit of a break. So we'll have, I guess, like 7 or 8 more episodes to go, and then we're gonna take a little bit of a break, and then we'll be back and we'll do 20 more episodes to end the, you know, in the season. But
Well, you talked about Saw, so maybe we should do Saw.
or Paranormal Activity, that's sort of still in the,
Yeah.
producers.
Well,
I
a lot of these have been my idea, so I'd like to go off of something that you would like to do, and you had mentioned Saw, so
mentioned Saw. I've never really watched those, and I've never really watched the Paranormal Activity. So those would be two things. If we can do those, that's almost 20 episodes in themselves. Having both of those, series together.
yeah,
I
I
would,
think if we're gonna kind of stick with what we did on last season, then we should do Saw next because of Lee Winnell and
yep, and then
James
do
Wan
Paranormal Activity
and,
last.
and Paranormal Activity. Yeah, then because then that's the one of the producers of Insidious.
Yep, Insidious. There you
Well,
go.
and James Winnell. So I'm sorry,
Yeah,
and yeah, James
James
Winnell.
Wan, but if you combine them
Lee
together,
Winnell.
yes, that's an
They really are
interesting.
one person.
The 1L and Wan, they're very similar names, I guess. But yeah, I love them. I love them both. I've been adoring this stuff. This Insidious 2, Chapter 2 will be the last episode that James Wan had done of the Insidious. But we've already covered the other two that were Wanless. Wanless.
Yeah,
Unless you
just
count his little
producer wise,
cameo,
that's about it. Yeah,
you know,
yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah. His little stage director cameo.
stage director cameo, which is pretty neat. Once again, I was just like, wait, is that James Wan? Like, or just
Oh
somebody
yeah,
looks similar to him, you know?
no, he
Would have
he
been
definitely
even
has a
funnier if
look.
it was somebody who looked similar to him. And, they just got a guy that, they were picking a guy that looked like James Wan to play him. But no, it was
I
him.
like James Wan being in it.
I,
I like him being in
I
it.
like him being in it too,
Yeah.
especially since he wasn't able to really to be on set much from what I've understood. But of that one. I don't know how much he was involved with part 4, the last key, but I know part 3 he was on Aquaman at that time, so or whatever. So there you go.
All right. So
Um
what's our rating for this then?
it's rating. Um
I'm guessing for you, 1 out of 5, probably a 5, since it's your favorite one.
5, yeah. Like I think I'm gonna give it a 5. I was thinking about that. Um I mean, yeah, I don't think yeah, even want like whatever. I don't think I found a single issue that I had really with it, it was pretty flawless, flawless victory. So I
Okay.
loved it. Now, what about you?
I'm gonna give it a 5 too. So I think I gave Lost Key a 5, I think, and I'm giving this a 5.
Yeah, so you
And
like
then I
both of
think
them. So it's
I
gonna be
think
tough for you
three.
to pick. Yeah,
Yeah, I think I
3
gave
you had problems with. You had issues
three.
with.
Yeah, I think I gave that 3 stars.
Yeah,
So
you
we'll
had
see
little
what part two
issues
is.
with them because of the writing or whatever. That was a little that wasn't as good or whatever. Here's the thing also. We talked about before, part 3 was written and directed by Lee, part 4 wasn't and stuff. Maybe that was another reason we never thought about that or never said anything, but maybe that was a reason why it didn't do as well for writing is because he was concentrated on directing. It was his first directing thing. And maybe he just, when you're a writer, sometimes you can take a little bit of a break if that's all you're doing, to just make sure everything is great and top notch with the director, you know. But when
I
you're
mean, it's
directing a
yeah, it's
film, it's
possible.
kind of harder to, in my opinion.
My, I mean, my thing with part 4, Last Key is that I like its location. I like it flipping back and forth. I like all that type of stuff. To me, it just had a more to it than let's say part 3
I'm
did.
really big on
So
flashbacks. I really am. And I put them in my movies and my stories as well because I I just enjoy like, the idea of going back in time, and being sort of more period and everything and seeing that time period, So it's not just sort of they couldn't do that in the first movie anyway because of the budget. The budget was, yeah, you said you heard from Jason Blum talking about it too, and I've heard the same thing from him, and probably a different interview, where he was talking about how it's $1 million to start with, or 1.5 million, and you have to keep it in the house, can't really, go too far. This movie, it was the house. It was, then it was the further, which was also the house. So it kept its budget low. And then later in sequels, you can go higher. You can go 3 million, 4 million, whatever. But like they don't ever go past like 10 million, you know, because the idea is like you want to keep it as low as possible so that later um you can make I think though I Josie and the Pussycats, which also Jason Blum did, I think that might have been a big budget, if I'm correct. Oh no, Jim and the Holograms. Why did I say Josie?
Oh,
Jim and the Holograms. You know what I'm talking about?
no, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me see what that budget was.
So while you look that up, so yeah, each one, so like Insidious was 1.5 million, chapter 2 was 5 billion, and then 3 and 4 were 10 million each. So to make all four films, it only cost them 26.5 million. That's like nothing.
Okay, so Jim and the Holograms was 5 million. Do you know how much it made, gross wise?
2 million.
Worldwide gross, yep, 2,333,684.
Yep, it was a massive bomb.
Yeah, that's terrible. For
Massive.
them too, like they're, and that I think that was before Get Out, if I'm correct, or is that after? That was after Get Out. It's been after, because when was that? 2000
Yeah,
and
Jason Blum talks
15.
briefly about that film in that interview that I watched, where he said that he really liked it and that he was a fan of the cartoon and that he really wanted to do it, and it just bombed. Just nobody cared.
So I was before Get Out, and Get Out was one of their biggest like hits, bigger than the
Oh yeah.
Insidious movies. Like real quick, that was a budget of, wow, weirdly enough, for Jordan Peele's first movie with Blumhouse, its budget was 4.5 mil, which is big for them. I'm guessing they thought since he was a big actor at that time that they would give, that they could give him a big budget. Do you know how much that made opening weekend
Which one is this?
for Get Out?
Um, 10 million.
33 million.
Oh
Now,
wow, I'm way off.
that's just the opening weekend. What was the gross? Yeah, 255 million for the gross. So it's pretty much destroyed most of what, they do on their stuff. But then again, I have more money than, a lot of the movies like Insidious did, you know, the original Insidious. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, I just think like after that happened, they made that much money. They ended up sort of trading I mean, they have to keep making movies that they think are gonna make make that money again, like, work with people that, like Jordan Peele, And so anyway, all right. Well, I think that's about it. That about wraps it up. I think we talked 2 hours on this one. So
Yeah, almost. Yeah.
yeah. So I just want to say thank you guys for checking this out. Check. We'll be back next week with Insidious Chapter 2. And I've also been doing the first time watch Fridays still. So Mondays and Fridays. And I'm doing a couple Wildcard Wednesdays episodes per, I'm probably doing one per month, starting. So we'll have content here at the channel. Check us out on TikTok, Horror Film Lovers on TikTok. I've also got my show, Horror Film Lovers on podcast on Indie Film Cafes Network. So check that out as well. We just released the first episode back of season 3, and that was Sarah Atkins's last episode. So of being a co-host. I think she might be back later, but you know, we'll see. Um, as like special guest or whatever. But check that out. We reviewed The Descent, you know, which I think is I don't know if you seen The Descent?
Yes, and part two. Yeah, I'm a big Neil Marshall fan.
Yeah, you do like Neil Marsh. I
I think that he should have directed an Alien movie. I think he would have been great
He
to
would
do
have
an
been
Alien
great.
movie.
And I love Descent,
Doomsday
The
is a great
Descent.
movie. I
Um,
love
I'm
Doomsday.
I need to I need to really rewatch Dog Soldiers because I really did not like it when I first watched it. I think
It's
it's because
good. Have
mostly
you
it
seen
was
Doomsday?
no,
No, you
no,
need
I
to
gotta
see
check that
Doomsday.
out.
I think it's
Yeah.
his best movie.
And so we got that going on. We'll also have we'll have other stuff. Well, next, yeah, we'll have lots of content coming to you. So don't worry, check it out. Facebook, Instagram. If I can figure out stuff that's going on with my Instagram, and then that's it. So thank you guys for
There we
checking
go.
this out, and enjoy yourself. Until then, everybody, bye.
Bye. Bye.